Good evening. Hello,
Good
Sham.
evening.
Hi, Priya. Hi, Supraja.
Hi.
Glad to connect on this fine evening.
Good to be here, Jyoti.
Okay, let us start. Hello, everyone. I'm Supraja, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to the panel discussion on an interesting topic, HR 2025 and beyond, as part of Launcher 2025 initiative by NIPM Kerala chapter. I have with me Shamin from Agape Diagnostics and Jyoti from Reflection Info Systems as my panel members. I'm also very pleased to welcome our guest speaker for today, Priya Subramani, Head of HR at Analog Devices India. Priya has over 2 decades of experience and has led strategic HR initiatives and large scale transformations in leading companies like Honeywell, IBM, Flipkart. She's also known for her ability to foster employee engagement, build robust leadership pipelines, and integrate technology into HR processes. A very warm welcome to you, Priya.
Thank you, Supraja.
I would like to start this discussion with a question to Priya. When we think of future, a few buzzwords like AI, technology come into our mind, and HR is no different. So, what's your take on the advent of AI on HR?
I think it's a double-edged sword, right? AI in HR is a double-edged sword, and this whole notion of AI can replace HR is actually a myth, right? If you look at it from a process standpoint or an automation standpoint or data insight standpoint, I think AI is very useful and it'll give you everything you need as an HR business partner or an HR leader. But if you want to replace HR business partnering, with AI, I think that's going to be very difficult. Yes, you can efficiently manage your processes at scale. Yes, you can help with data driven decisions. But even there, with data driven decisions, when you look at algorithms and how that sits in, right? Like if I put the wrong algorithm, then I'm going to get the wrong outputs, right? And even in recruiting, if my prompts are wrong, then my AI outputs are going to be wrong. So as much as we keep saying use AI to improve your recruiting efficiency, it will screen resumes, it will do all of that. Very, very famous company actually did this, right? It used algorithms to actually lay off thousands of employees, and it ended up laying off skills that they really needed. And by then it was really too late. So I believe it's a double-edged sword. It's great for data-driven decisions if you have the right algorithms. Employee experience, of course, you can handle all the queries through AI, and you can call it Lena or you can call it Priya even, right? And it can give you what you need. One of the organizations that I worked with, they called it Ask Red, and it worked amazingly well there. But with reference to actual HR partnering in the service delivery model, I don't think it really works. With reference to data driven decision making, you need to have an an employee or a human intervention there, right? You can't do it without that. So I believe it's a double-edged sword, and that's what it is.
Yes, Priya, that's exactly where I think I would also take you through the discussions today on the AI part. As we just heard, the world of work is transforming faster than ever, reshaped by technology or evolving workforce dynamics and a growing focus on inclusivity. And the center of all, we have AI. So in 2025 and beyond, HR is at a tipping point. AI will not only automate processes, HR processes, but also predict workforce trends or improve employee well being and enhance the decision making. But is AI a game changer or a challenge for HR professional? We'll have to explore that. So imagine this: there's a recruiter who's posting in a job vacancy, and within hours she's flooded with 1,000 plus resumes. So instead of spending weeks manually screening them, an AI driven tool analyzes skills, cultural fit, and even communication style within minutes. So this do sound like a science fiction, but it's actually happening now. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and there are companies like Unilever, that are using AI powered tools. Like they have started using AI chatbot for their first round of interviews and which helped them reduce the hiring time up to 75%. But here's a catch, exactly like what Priya said earlier in the beginning. AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. So if you take the example of Amazon, they have scrapped their AI hiring tool because it was developed by it favoring male candidates over female candidates just because of their hiring history. They were the AI tool, it favored male candidate over female candidate for the technical roles. Okay, so which is again about the data that you feed AI. So if you feed on the wrong data, you get wrong answers to it. So companies are using AI powered hiring tools like HireView, Metrics, and LinkedIn Recruiter to streamline the recruitment process.
Right.
So these tools scan resumes or conduct initial screening and even assess candidates' potential beyond the traditional qualification. And these benefits in faster hiring, reduced bias, and data driven decisions, which help in hiring improved or talent quality. So, what's next? The future of hiring won't be just about matching keywords in your resumes, but AI will soon analyze personality, adaptability, and learning ability, helping companies hire for potential and not for experience. So, a quick question: would you trust an AI to decide whether you get hired for your next job?
No.
No, right?
I
No.
think that was the point that I was thinking of when you spoke about HireView and how HUL uses AI,
Exactly.
right? Especially for leadership roles, that never works. I think it's important
Exactly.
to have a network and a solid one at that for you to be able to get referenced to a senior role, right? Senior
Yes,
leadership, exec hiring is all about references. So any job
exactly.
you land, be sure that you know somebody senior in that organization for having landed that job. Otherwise, you're not even going to land it, right? So I believe that AI can be used for repetitive work, as you mentioned, but when it
Yeah,
comes to more unique niche skills, you need human intervention. Human in the loop
exactly.
is what I call it,
Human
right?
in the loop. Yeah, exactly.
There has to be a human in
Human
the loop.
loop. Yeah, and audience can also put in your your answers into the comment section as well. Moving on now, let's talk about something that challenges every HR leader: keeping employees engaged and preventing burnouts. Right. So, what if I told you that AI can actually predict burnout before it happens? So, AI powered sentiment analysis tools are being used to scan employee mails, your chat messages, and survey responses to detect early signs of dissatisfaction or stress.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, Microsoft Viva analyzes, workload trends and suggests breaks or lighter schedule if it detects that early signs of exhaustion or stress. And companies are also leveraging in AI driven mental health support tools like Visa and Ginger, which offer real time emotional support and counseling. And here's something even more futuristic. So I checked in that there is something called digital twin for employees. That is, the AI will monitor work pattern, productivity, and well being indicators to predict when an employee might need support or before they even realize it themselves. So, but again, here's a question: how would you feel if AI goes through your mail to check your stress level? Is it
Yeah.
helpful or is it invasive?
It is invasive, right? It's
Yes, right?
intrusive. Sorry, yeah. And the other thing that's also critical in this whole digital twin is that your digital twin knows everything that's going on in your life, and that could be then accessible to everybody in the organization. And in HR,
Oh,
especially, right? I don't want everybody to know what's going on. I mean, if I
yes,
have to put myself in those shoes, right? And it's really critical that I stay clear of any of that because there's a lot of highly confidential work that we all do on a day-to-day basis. And
exactly.
the comfort in which you're able to get your work done without something behind you, some of this is becoming very, very stocky kind, right? Like I feel stalked when I have all these AI-based tools that are tracking everything, even a sentiment analysis. I don't know how far we've gone with that. I think
I
we've
think
over,
Jyoti's company have a sentiment analysis, right, Jyoti?
we've over engineered it,
That's
right?
right.
We really can't get there without.
You glad you remembered that. But so far, it has actually helped for us to predict any potential risk of losing a potential candidate based on the time they take to respond the survey. It gives us mood score that helps us to analyze the data much, but it is also a scary part, when you think of the employee side.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
It is
is.
more of data in and data out. So whoever gives the data is eventually a human. So
Yes.
whatever biases they have, whatever feedback they have, eventually goes in building a tool, right? So that is something which no tool can change. The human bias part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with a survey, right? Like
Mm.
Gint is a very
That's
famous
essential.
VOE, the Voice of Employee survey. But then the assessments it does, 99.9% of the times it's accurate because employees are anonymous, they're ready to give you the feedback. But when you go to each employee and go like, this is the sentiment that you're carrying, or it becomes a little too controlling as well in terms of
Mm.
how
I
you get
agree
that
on to that.
information. And an HR business partner being on the floor, understanding what's going on, that is a lot more effective in terms of even understanding where a manager may be slacking up, right? Just doing a sentiment analysis will not
Mm.
give you much. When you go deeper into it, is and it could aid. I'm not saying it should not, but beyond that, you'll still need a human in the loop. I mean, I'm repeating myself again.
But it actually sounds really cool. Human in the loop. Yeah. So now let me take you through AI in learning and development. So we've all been into a training session that felt completely irrelevant sometimes, right? Sitting through hours of learning that doesn't really apply to our job. Okay, so AI is changing that. It is by making learning hyper personalized. So, just like you have Netflix recommended shows according to your preferences, AI driven learning platforms are going to track your role, skills, and interest to suggest customized training programs. Okay, so for example, PwC has integrated AI into leadership training using VR simulations. Okay, so employees go through real world scenarios and AI adapts the training based on their responses. So, this makes it interactive and effective at the same time. So, just time for another question as well. If AI could make one personalized learning path just for you, what's one skill you'd want it and help you master?
I think AI itself. Educating myself on AI and how it works. I think the learning and development piece is one that I've missed, and I'm happy you brought it up, Shamin. I
Yeah,
think it's a very
thank you.
critical one, and in fact, we're using it in my current organization, my other
Oh,
organizations that I've worked in. All of the learning technologies that are out there helps you, pushes you to actually do self learning a lot better with when it's integrated with the skills that you carry. So when you look at organizations, they overlay learning platforms on their HR systems. That way the learnings get pushed automatically. Brilliant way to motivate employees to learn. One of the things that we've done in the current organizations that I work with is we've been able to integrate one of the famous learning tools into the organization, and it's been a big hit in
oh,
personalized learning. So I think it's
oh,
been
yes.
amazing.
I do believe that personalized learning is everything. If it's something customized for you, employees do want to be part of it. So I think even AI in L&D works really well.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So I had actually run a poll yesterday in LinkedIn asking what excites you the most about AI in HR. And the maximum answers went in for AI in PMS. Okay. So annual performance reviews are fading away, right? Nobody wants to wait a whole year to understand a feedback or know about a feedback that you are having, right? So AI is making performance management real time and data driven. So, with AI, managers can get instant insights into productivity trends and employee engagement. Okay, so AI powered, there are coaching tools like BetterUp, providing continuous leadership training, and platforms like Salesforce Einstein AI. which can predict which employee have high growth potential. But again, companies are also looking into something called gamification, which is already in existence, right? So imagine a system where employees earn points and rewards for hitting key performance metrics, like turning feedbacks into fun and engaging experience, right? That would be really cool. So what would you prefer, like AI performance feedback or traditional reviews?
I think I'm traditional in my head, right? Like I've heard about this, but I've not seen it being practiced
Mm,
heavily across
yeah,
organizations. And it's amazing the way you've told the story. But in the reality of it, I think a manager knows best how to frame feedback to an employee again, because an employee may be going through several things personally, and just
I'm
monitoring
coming into that. Yes.
yeah, and just monitoring performance using AI or understanding sentiment through AI is not going to give you as much as a manager knowing an employee, right? So
Yeah.
one thing that I think AI can help you with is, this is the feedback I have for for the employee as a manager. This is the
Yeah.
feedback I want to articulate in a more positive manner. Can
Yeah.
AI help me with that? Is a
Mm,
great way to use it, because it will then prune the English and the articulation of it and make it more emotionally intelligent for you to be able to convey the message to an employee. I think if there is an intelligent manager out there, he would
mhm.
use this for that, or she would use this for that, rather than use AI to sort of help monitor performance, right? Then
Yeah,
the role of a generic people manager redundant. Then you just need like individual career paths, and AI can become the manager. So
exactly.
you can just plug and
Coming
play.
back to human in the loop,
Yeah.
right? We're coming back to human in the loop. So you've exactly paved the way to the next thing that I was about to discuss, which is ethical dilemma. So
So,
with all
Shamim,
these advances,
one point before we move on this, right? Like one feedback is that, of course, performance management is something where I wouldn't want an AI to tell me, or a tool to tell me what I have done so far, right? However, playing to the points about the rewards and recognition is an area where it can be linked, because considering the
yeah,
multi generational workforce, right? Currently, people are more towards instant gratification. So
yes,
this kind of a gamification or point system will actually play to that generational shift which we are seeing.
exactly, exactly. I agree with you, Supraja, on that. So, with all these advancements, there's one question we all come again into: can AI replace HR? Right? So, but as Priya have clearly told us throughout the session, human in the loop. AI is smart, right? But it lacks emotional intelligence. It can analyze data, but it cannot have a heart to heart conversation with an employee who's going through a personal crisis, right? It can also optimize the hiring part, but it will never be able to build a workplace culture, right? And then there's this issue of bias that we discussed earlier in the recruitment part. If AI is trained on biased data, it reinforces discrimination rather than eliminating it, right? So here's the reality: HR isn't about human versus AI. It is about human working with AI. AI
Absolutely.
will handle the data part,
Yeah.
and HR will bring in the empathy part. Yeah, so that
That's true.
HR can transform from administrative function to strategic decision making, right? AI is not here to replace us, but it's here to empower us. That's my take on this. So
Yeah.
we've been actually seeing in how AI is revolutionizing HR, like that is about hiring smarter, performance management that is done real time, and we also discussed about employee well-being, being predictive. But at the end of the day, AI is just a tool, right? The real question is, how do we ensure that the workforce itself involves or evolves alongside AI? Speaking of workforce evolution, Priya, how would you see technology influencing the gig economy?
Technology influencing the gig economy. I think that's a big one, right? There are
Yeah,
right now, even HireView has a gig part of the employment contract, and how you can actually apply to gig employment and also freelance employment. I think there are two parts to it. One part of it is the gig part, which is Like you look at your Swiggies and the Zomatos of the world, and even Uber and Ola, right? I've met so many engineers that are actually doing that part time, saying, I work part time as a techie, but I also work part time as a Uber driver, and that just gives me the thrill of meeting new people from across the world. Even when I'm in Bangalore, there are lots of people that come across the world, and I love doing that. I think when it comes to real technology work, we haven't been able to pivot towards gig economy, right? I always said that I wanted to wake up one day in the Bahamas and actually do my HR work from there. That should be what it is, right? I should open my email and I should have like three or four projects that I need to complete. One could be training on performance management systems, the other could be a leadership coaching perhaps. That's the world that we want to live in, but how much progress have we made with reference to gig economy or freelance working is very, very hard to sort of pinpoint, right? Yes, it's boomed quite big in the delivery areas or service delivery areas, right, where you have like a customer service kind of an angle to it, like your Swiggies and Zomatos, as I mentioned. But when it comes to real technology organizations like the one that I work with or the one that Supraja works in, I don't think that's really possible. The reality of it is very far from the actual excitement or the buzzwords around gig and freelance, right? Whilst this is all clear, there are privacy issues that come up, contractual issues that come up. So much of the work that my engineers do, I have IP around it, and I can't like freelance or do gig economy on that. Anything that's low on knowledge, low on the amount of you know confidentiality that's involved or customer confidentiality that's involved, even in the financial services sector, it's very hard. You will not be able to progress with the gig economy unless your cybersecurity and your confidentiality agreements and the NDAs that the employees sign are very, very clear and crisp, and employees still don't go out there and leak those informations out to competitors, which is a big trust factor that'll play up, right? So gig economy, yes, but in pockets, it's great for lower level sort of employment, right? And I'm not saying that it's not high tech or anything like that, but if it's more service delivery related, yes, we can definitely go after a gig or a freelance style of employment contract. But if it comes to high end technology, niche work, it's very difficult to actually do the gig or the freelance, right?
Thanks, Priya. Thanks for the perspective. I think there was one comment or one feedback saying people who don't know AI are missing out a lot of fun. So we are shifting the gears from AI to a gig workforce so that everybody can have that fun in the conversation. So while you briefly touched upon the gig workforce in the service delivery or the customer focus, right? I think that is something which I want to pick up and share few thoughts because that is the present and that is the future which is trending towards the future, right? Whenever there is a technology or a business model disruption, right, there is a workforce model disruption too. For example, we had the industrial revolution and we had the factories and factory labor coming up. We had the IT or the automation kind of a revolution, and we have the software and skilled workers coming up, right? So currently, one of the most rapidly rising business models, I'm sure each one of us have used it multiple times, whether it is Swiggy, whether it is Zomato, whether it is Amazon or whatever it is, right? Our daily needs focus on that.
Yeah.
And gig workforce form a major part of their workforce, connecting the products to the customers. So what is this gig workforce all about? Gig workforce are basically short-term freelance and contract-based workers. Can you guess? It's just a guess. Can you guess? There's a NITI Aayog report that there will be X million gig workforce in by 2029 and 30. Can you make a vague guess of what is that X number?
Across the globe or just in India?
Yeah, India.
Okay, I'm going to go
Wild
crazy
guess
here and say
five.
1 million.
I go with five. Wild guess.
40?
Okay, so I think somebody was very aspirational about 40, and somebody was very pessimistic about one, but the number is 23.5 million, right?
Wow.
That is the number of gig workforce we are expecting in as part of NITI Aayog. So,
I think that again goes back to your point, Supraja, on the millennial boomers, Gen Z, Gen X, right? If you look at the Gen Zs, the Gen X, I think more of the Gen Zs, they would want to do instant gratification, and that again points to us. I don't need that much money. I'm okay with what I live with, and maybe that's what this is pointing towards. It kind of stitches the story together in a lot of ways.
Right, rightly said so. So one of the important thing is the technology is made ready, the people are ready, but are we as HR professional, are we ready to manage that kind of a workforce? We have a lot of governance, we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of best practices around whatever the force we have currently, right? But whether it is compensation benefits, whether it is skilling, whether it is development, we don't have a lot of are we as HR professionals ready to face that workforce, right? In fact, about 47% of the gig workforce is in medium level skilling, and about 31% in low skilling. So for the point which Priya said, right, whether this is the current medium and low skilled workforce, but when we move higher up the technology chain, we are very less in that aspect. So what has brought up this gig workforce is something which I was about to touch, and Priya rightly preempted it. Whether it is advent of technology or changing workforce or flexibility, right, or increasing kind of independence. These are all something which is pushing towards the gig workforce. But there is harsh reality on the ground as well, right? How many of us have seen a lot of heartwarming LinkedIn posts saying, I gave water to a Swiggy delivery guy, I allowed a or a Zomato delivery guy to stay for some time. So, what are the harsh realities on the ground? Do we have a pulse check with us? Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the harshest realities is fair pay, right? One of the things that I've heard repeatedly is fair pay. If you look at your Swiggy, Zomatos of the world, the pay ranges from the lowest to the highest. Like it goes from 3,000 to like 25,000 even. But they would probably level it based on, oh, you're educated, you can speak English, or you can't speak English. I don't know how that kind of fair pay can actually be done, but that's one that we need to work on. The other one that's sort of coming in my mind is performance tracking. How do you actually track performance? While there are all these mechanisms to actually give feedback as a customer, in this case, it's still difficult to fairly track that performance. I'm sure there are BI tools that are available to see how these delivery agents actually work, what do they take care of, even if it's like your Mintras and your Flipkarts of the world or Amazons of the world. How do you actually track their performance? How do you give them feedback on their performance, right? And how do you engage them? I think these are the things that HR may be prepared for very little. There is a little bit of a learning curve for us as well to go through. And last but not the least, I think the reward and recognition portion, right? As part of engagement, how do you actually reward and recognize these delivery agents that are there? They're sitting in hubs that are different for different areas. How do you collaborate with them? It's a very interesting problem to solve for. I'm sure, like, if we had HR folks from those organizations, they probably give us better insights on how that's done. Even onboarding could become an issue, right? How quickly can you get them onto the tools and technologies that you need them to onboard on? Some of them may be completely clued into how to use technology, but some of them may be from smaller urban towns and may not know how to use it even. So how do you get them clued into that? And many times we've experienced even delivery agents not knowing how to use these tools. They're really still getting used to it. So those, I think, would be like fair bit of challenges that employees will be faced with if they're part of the gig economy. And we're looking at the medium skilled employees there, Supraja.
Adding to that, I think benefits is also a concerning area,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Because even if they meet with an accident, I think that cannot
Exactly.
directly take care of the family, because you're a contract
Of course.
employee and I don't feel contractually obligated to help you through that.
Yeah,
Very important point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Very important
That's
point,
right.
especially because they're on the road and insurance is something that they would require like a basic stuff.
Yeah. So taking cue from all the points, right? I think these are very very valid points. In fact, the performance management system or the reward system, or even if you take the Maslow's hierarchy, right? They come in the different areas. We some of my sharing some of my thoughts. The first thought would be a better social security benefit, right? Considering the economic background or considering the education background or the skill level background, right? Better social security benefits and better that is something which is to start with. Of course there are right right kind of an attention to these. There are forums being set up. There are councils being set up to address these issues. But I think we need a little more focus. Income insecurity, right? The second part is income insecurity. While we hear rosy stories about people saying yes, I do this for part time, or I do this as a means to support education. There are about 22% of the people. There was a survey done, and there was a 22% of the people who do this as part of their main income. So that is where there is a challenge which comes in that. Third would be fair treatment protected by labor laws. Unless something becomes a law, it becomes very, very difficult for organizations, a lot of organizations, to implement it 100%. So that is something which is very important. Fourth thing would be the health and hazard pay, considering half of the time they are on the road, considering there are a lot of hot or sun effects, right? In fact, I was reading an article which said sun or hotness or harsh hotness related pay, especially in a country like India where summer is the most prevalent weather or most prevalent climate, right? So this is something which was there. Skill development, and of course collective bargaining. So if as HR professionals we are able to start looking at these kind of forums and starting to influence the decision makers through this, right? Of course, we will be able to, once we have a kind of a forum or a platform, then we kind of look it up to build it to the next level. So this is something on gig workforce which I wanted to touch, because while we talk about the technology moving up, while we talk about a lot of benefits moving up, this is a different kind of a workforce which is getting integrated into mainstream workforce, and how well we are able to integrate them is something which we need to look forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also see how we can bring in high knowledge workers as well into the realm.
Mm.
While gig work is only there for like the medium skilled, how do we take the highly skilled and turn it into gig? Would be very interesting. And this is because, again, stitching it back to how your the Gen Zs are going to take over the workforce, right? They're saying 27% of the workforce by 2025 will be Gen Z, and that's right here, right now. And with that in the backdrop, how do we actually engage them, give them the flexibility they're looking for? There are Gen Zs that'll come and say, I want to take a break because I did 6 months of work. I want to go and climb the Himalayas for 2 months. And it's a live example. Like in Flipkart, we had it all the time when I was working there, right? We had to cater to their needs and see how we could put policies in place that could help them. So it's definitely something that is worth pushing in terms of considering how we could have highly skilled workers as well in the gig economy.
That's a very interesting question, but I think if we curate the benefits and the contract according to the Gen Z's need, of course we'll attract talents.
Absolutely.
Moving on from a while, because Priya, you touched upon the multi generation, right? We also have an interesting topic on diversity and inclusion, because we feel that this is something as well as the future. So um, we have few topics on that. And Jyoti, do you want to start with that?
Of course, before I dig deep into a DI topic, I have a question to Priya. How do you think AI? We spoke about a lot of AI topic in the beginning with Shaman. How do you think AI will help or hurt DA efforts in the next 5 years or so, and why?
AI will help or hurt what? I didn't get
DI
it.
efforts.
It will really help, I think. That's another positive area, I would say, right? Even if I had AI in the organization, figure out what mix of generational workforce I have, for instance, and what mix of gender, and then what are the outputs that are coming out, right? If you look at diverse teams, be it gender or the different generational diversity. Right now, we have, I think, 5 generations working together. It's a very unique situation that we are in. McKinsey says that 1.7x more innovation comes out of a diverse workforce. And they're talking about gender diversity, LGBTQ, they're talking about the generation, they're talking about a mix of diverse workforce. So I believe that AI can play a very important role in just analyzing the workforce that we're working with. And I think AI will also play a very important role in understanding what the workforce needs are, and therefore HR being able to tailor make what we need from an HR best practices standpoint for that workforce that exists, right? And with reference to gender in specific, because that's very close to our heart in India, right? We've not gone and done LGBTQ to that extent that we would like for it to be. I think with reference to gender, one of the things that really works is even learning. If I look at learning as an ecosystem, if I look at women in diversity, the type of soft skills that we want to learn while we are in our jobs is very different from the soft skills that a man wants to learn, or a male employee wants to learn. I think a female employee typically tends to undersell themselves in most situations, while a male tries to play on an equal footing in that sense, right? Is able to have better self-awareness. I think automatically we have a sense of self-critique more than we have self-appreciation. And I'm not saying that anything is bad or good, but I do want to call out that, you know, AI could help them sort of in their learning journeys if we have a good platform that can help aid their personal learning journeys, right? And we touched upon that earlier with Shaman.
That's right. Thank you so much for such an enlightening answer. I am going to touch upon AI and DEI in my later part of conversation. Before that, I would like to share some things about DEI. As we step into 2025 and beyond, I believe diversity, equity, inclusion are no longer just checkboxes that the organization should have. They are the backbone of future ready and sustainable workplace. In today's diverse workforce, I'm sure companies that cultivate a culture of belonging, trust, and inclusion are better positioned to attract and retain top talents, like we discussed with gig economy. Aligning DEI initiatives with business objectives not only enhances the employee experience, I believe it also drives the overall organizational performance. Leaders definitely play a crucial part in DEI initiatives. They are encouraged to view DEI as integral to their strategic goals. Take it seriously, and efforts are put in are genuine, and it has to be impactful. There are DI is a vast topic with respect to diversity itself. Let's focus only on generational diversity. When we speak about generational diversity, like Priya said, it includes different age group of people and generation who are working together. I believe each generation brings unique set of experience, skills, and also expectations. For example, we have Priya called out five, but I can relate to four: baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. These are the four generations that are currently, on limelight. Each of them has a set of unique experiences, like I quoted before. For example, baby boomers are someone who value loyalty. Gen X mostly prefer flexibility and work-life balance. Gen X, I should definitely quote this, focus more on the mental health nowadays. When we have different age group of people, different genders, there are of course benefits and challenges. I feel the benefits are higher on the side. We have variety of perspective, fresh ideas, and it is a balance approach between tradition and the technology. Of course, with the communication style, Gen Z prefers over baby boomers. There is some miscommunication that can sorted over basic training. So here I would like to pause and see if Shamin Supraja has any points to add on the generational diversity.
So
Any
one interesting point shift which I see is that from an HR perspective, right? Like we traditionally look for, when somebody resigns, we look for reasons like I got a better compensation or I got a better opportunity. But we see a lot of generational shift where we are not able to accept those reasons. Where I'm leaving because I want to take a 2 months break, or I'm leaving because I just want to explore something on my own and then come back to workforce. So this is something, and we as HR professionals maybe are still not prepared. Like we tend to give solutions like, do you want to take a 15 days holiday, or do you want to work from home? But then there are a lot of question marks on people's faces, right? So this is a small example where we see generational shifts very quickly at workplaces.
that's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Like earlier, Priya had also said, like once you were working in Flipkart, people wanted to go on hiking, or that things are being crazy, but still they value mental health more than anything. So it has its own positives as well, right?
That's right, actually. The companies should focus more on having policies related to sabbatical leave if they don't want to lose the top talent. That is one
Yes.
thing. Okay. Thank you for adding your viewpoints, Shamin and Supraja. So we ran a poll yesterday in our LinkedIn handle. We wanted to include audience emotion also when we have this discussion. I should definitely thank you for the responses. We had a question: what meaningful DEI looks like in 2025 beyond the standard metrics and checkboxes. The results were clear and inspiring. 60% of the audience said belonging felt by everyone, and 40% highlighted on the equal growth opportunities. And I couldn't agree more. Belonging is where DEI truly comes to life. When every person feels seen, valued, and safe to be their authentic self, but belonging without opportunity can feel empty. That's why equal access to growth, learning, and leadership is the next essential step. When you're speaking about DEI, it is a cruel mistake if you're missing this topic on bias. Bias is a root cause DEI is basically trying to address. When we say bias, we have two types: conscious or unconscious. Unconscious is mostly addressing subtle, often unintentional, discriminatory comment or action that can negatively impact marginalized group. Conscious or unconscious hiring, promotions, and even recognitions. Without addressing these biases, policies and initiatives won't translate into an actual inclusivity. Leaders who understand their own biases and continuously work to challenge them create environment in the organization. I also think that bias is not like a one time initiative or a training to be fixed at once. It is more like building daily habits, holding each other accountable. It is also said that bias is like your brain's shortcut, helpful in survival but dangerous in decision making. We all have these mental shortcuts that help us to make quick decisions, but it can often lead to consciously or unconsciously to biases like affinity bias or confirmation bias or attribution bias. So I have some quick ways that you can check biases at work everyday basis. I have some three tips. First is pause. Before making any quick decisions with respect to hiring or allocating a resource to a critical project, ask yourself: am I basing this fact on a feeling? Second, flip the perspective. Ask yourself: would I make the same call if the person looked or sounded different? Third, ask for a second opinion. Invite others to weigh in because diversity of thought catches the blind spot that you're missing in. Bias isn't something we fix once, like I said before. It requires constant awareness, course correction. I have a question back to the audience. I would love to see your response. What is one practice that helps you to check on your biases in everyday decision? Let's share our tactics. Also, I would like to hear from my fellow panelists, Shaman and Supraja. What do you think of bias? How do you handle bias at work as a HR professional?
One point, Jyoti, like we are getting to know biases which even never existed, right? Especially when we are on the topic of 2025 and beyond, we will have some biases which we didn't know it existed. For example, now there are a lot of companies which are focusing on branding, especially branding on social media. Why is that? That was not the situation earlier, right? Of course, we can say that, yeah, because of technology, etc. But there is a bias for the new and upcoming generation that they want to work for a company which is more impactful in terms of a brand. So this is a bias which companies have kind of understood and moving towards it. So we are getting to know biases which never existed. So we'll have to be very creative in solutions as well because we don't know what is going to hit us.
Yeah, and I think it's more about being mindful, and this comes as part of your organizational culture also. So, back at my organization in Agape, we have actually started to form a DEI council. So, this is going to be employee resource group where employees get into discussions about DEI and then this employee group is going to focus the drive of DEI further in the organization. Like, a lot of people are unaware of the fact that there is bias or something that you say might hurt a person, right? So and it's not just the HR's job to ensure that I don't speak it. So everybody in the organization should also be aware of these biases. So I think something like a DEI council can help drive that in an organization. So that's my thoughts on the bias part.
Yeah,
Truly, I
I think one
completely
more
agree.
thing that comes to my mind, if I may, right, is not just a training, but a ready reckoner kind of book that sits with you. And it's in my other organization that I worked in, we actually had a little postcard that spoke through unconscious biases. This was placed in every employee's desk because it helps them during the process of performance management, right? Even if their manager has a bias that's set in their mind, then they can call it out and say, let me remind you that there is a bias that I can see based on the postcard that HR has shared with us, right? That way you're building the culture a little more stronger, and you're saying, if you see a bias, call it out wherever you are, whoever you are in the room, right? You
Exactly.
own this organization, so you run it like you own it, and you call out where there are issues. And every employee is a leader. Every employee is not just an employee, but everybody owns this organization. We drive the culture together. So I think that's very powerful. While all of these are important and the trainings are important, the examples that are stated in the training are very important. But what stays with you is like something that you can just pick up and go like, hey, this makes sense. I think this was going wrong, right?
Speaking up definitely is a crucial point, Priya. I second that. The organization should have that safe space for the employees to speak up,
Yeah.
right? That is again we are back to the loop of DEI. And to reply to the point Shaman has shared regarding, it is not only the HR's job. Like, I'm saying that I'm not speaking, I'm not biased. We have to ensure everyone in the organization is of that state. Acknowledging itself is a bigger step, and conducting training programs to make the employees, like, understand about unconscious bias. I just came across a wonderful advertisement by Titan Raga on accounts of Women's Day. Might be a very older advertisement. I just placed it in the chat for the audience benefit. I would love for all of you to watch that advertisement. It clearly says about how unconscious bias runs in your mind. That is something we'll have to definitely pick up on.
Yeah, and also it depends on the generation you're from, right? If you're a boomer, then the way that you're going to perceive the rest of the three generations is going to be very different. For instance, a boomer is going to go like, "Oh my God, this Gen Z is asking for too many concessions, too much flexibility. I can't work like this. This is not making any sense." And the same boomer, and typically boomers and Gen X's are the managers and leaders, right? And maybe in pockets millennials as well, based on the organization that you were in. But a boomer would again look at a millennial and go like, this person constantly needs praise. And that again is a bias, right? Maybe it's not that. They just want feedback, good or bad, right? I want to know whether I'm doing well, I'm not, whether you need something different from me. So that's also another angle to consider while we speak about generations here.
That's right. So, when you speak about this, Priya, what do you suggest? How do we overcome this generational diversity? We, of course, have to have different generation at a workplace to have diverse environment, but these are some challenges that we get on the flow. How do you suggest we tackle them?
I think again it comes back to the culture of the organization. It comes back to workshops where there is a mixed, diverse group that sit together and actually solve for problems. It is a lot of time investment, a lot of productive, so-called productive time investment, which will lead to more productivity. But organizations need to be a little more open to investing that time and effort into getting people oriented to the different generations in the organization, making sure that especially managers are enabled to manage different workforce styles and workforce expectations. Because if you don't, then you just throw them in the deep end, and you'll end up having attrition as one of the biggest issues, or disengagement of employees as a big issue. I do believe that it's going to have to change based on culture, assimilation, orientation, and also education to the managers on how it's to be done.
That's right. I second that. I totally agree. Constant communication and awareness would definitely help to keep everyone on track. Let's dig deep. I dive into the evolution of DI with AI's role in DI efforts. As we discuss more about AI in 2025, AI is playing a significant role in many areas of HR, including advancing DEI. To connect to the question I asked Priya earlier, if AI helps or hurts DEI, let's discuss here. So, to my purview, AI and DEI, friend or a foe, I would speak for the perspective of friend first. Of course, like Shaman said in the beginning, AI helps in bias detection. In 2025, bias detection tools have become more sophisticated. Thanks to advances in AI, organizations now have use automated bias detection across data sets. From hiring algorithm to recommendation system, we have real-time flagging system and transparency reports. AI tools are also being used to review job description, performance evaluation, and other HR documents to identify and eliminate biased languages and practices. AI also helps with data analytics. AI helps organization analyze a large set of data to uncover disparities in hiring, promotion, say pay equity, also in employee retention. This data-driven approach allows company to make more informed decisions. Also connecting to what Shaman said with AI in recruitment, we have AI powered recruitment tools that can help ensure more diverse candidate pool by removing unconscious biases from the hiring process overall. These tools can also match candidates roles based on skills and experiences rather than demographic factors. To discuss more about the four factor, that is the factors that we have to be crucial about, is the algorithm bias. When AI systems are trained or built on a historic data which was biased data, then they can perpetuate existing biases, leading to unfair outcomes in hiring, promotion, and even other areas. AI using in DEI, maybe it leads to lack of transparency. We have to agree AI algorithms can be complex and opaque, making it difficult to understand how basically the decisions are made. We are not a tech person, basically, right? This lack of transparency, I believe, can hinder efforts to identify and address biases. Also, the limitation of data. In some cases where we are thinking to implement AI, there may be insufficient data to train the AI system effectively, leading to inaccurate or a biased result. To put it in a simple words or in short, we are getting better at seeing biases at work, but preventing it from spiraling out of control requires systemic change, not just technical fixes. Back to Priya for a question. If you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of HR leaders on DI, what would it be, Priya?
I think it would be being open. I think AI is all there, and I agree that it should be there. But being open to diverse workforce, to even LGBTQ. I know that the US recently went on this very aggressive mode, saying there is only man and woman, and I have a very different perspective on that. I myself personally have a lot of mixed group of friends, and I have a lot of respect for their feelings and love them a lot, in fact. And I believe that as organizations and HR people, we need to be open to the differences that they come with and appreciate that and encourage them to form point of views and also see how that works. I think there is enough research that's established that a diverse workforce always gives you a better business impact and also helps you innovate better. So I think that all HR partners, HR professionals should aggressively lobby for diverse workforce. And it's something that they need to track as often as they can. I know some of this, they want to keep it private, most employees, but still making sure that you get employees from all walks of life, training employees and managers on how to be inclusive in their work culture, and also being able to process thought processes even of an introvert versus an extrovert. So, there are different formats and layers of inclusivity in that sense, right? So it's not only LGBTQ or gender or whatever that is, but it's people coming from various different cultures, various different cities, states, backgrounds. Inclusivity is a much larger subject, and all HR partners, HR professionals should be coached on how to manage that workforce, and leaders too, right? Because that, I think, is the biggest gap that we're grappling with at the moment.
Thank you for such inspiring answer, Priya. I understand. We see a lot of political shift that is happening with DI, but that requires a whole another hour of discussion for all of us. We have
Totally.
almost completed our live. Can we look if we have any questions from the audience? I see.
One point on the diversity, right? Like just that we talked about different walks of diversity. One neurodiversity is something which is also going to be the future. Now there's a lot of inclusion and diversity in education level, but we as a future the companies are something which needs to be open to neurodiverse workforce. So I believe that will also add a lot of value to, or what a lot of differences which they bring in will add a lot of value to the organization. That is something which I believe it would be the future as it has come into education currently.
I agree
Yes.
that, Supraja. Thank you for adding. So let's see if we have questions from audience. I see a lot of them have poured in their suggestion as in when we were speaking about different topics. Thank you so much for your engagement. I see a question on the screen from Jitin. I have a question to ask the panel. What are the ways in measuring the ROI of DEB initiatives and how can HR ensure tangible business impact? Anyone can be open to take this question?
Can you come with a question again?
Sure. It is a question from Jitin. What are the ways in measuring the ROI of the DIB initiatives and how can HR ensure tangible business impact?
Okay,
Yeah.
I can take a stab at it. Like there are enough studies which has been done and enough research on what is the outcome which comes because of having diverse workforce. I am not talking about tokenism of diverse workforce. Okay, say I have X percentage of women in my workforce. A very tangible example would be in marketing and advertising. Right, there has been a lot of scenarios where we have seen business results where marketing has been done for women related products or persons with special disability related products by people who don't actually walk in that path. So companies now have actually brought in experts from that respective field or people who undergo that so that they can actually design for the extremes rather than a person who doesn't work or who doesn't use that kind of system and then impacting that. So that is a very tangible area where outcome has come out as well.
Yeah, and then one more thing that I want to add, Supraja, for measuring DEI, right? I think one of the most important things is looking at biases again, and going in and checking pay equity, right? It's just not gender. You look at the other, when you peel the onion, you look at the other DEI pieces as well, and see is there fair pay for all of the, different various varieties of people or employees that I've employed in the organization. Then you look at pulse surveys to see are women saying something different from the men even, or the other rest of the community if they have announced that. And then looking at promotions and biases where some of the maybe different genders getting promoted based on them being a certain gender or a certain diverse group, right? So those are again indicators. You need to actually mine data, and you'll actually see in some instances, Suprata, we've also dealt with it when you and I work together, where we've had maternity cases getting a low rating, and then we had to go back and say, you know what, that doesn't work, and we need to take care of that, or them not getting any raises at all. But those are biases, and those are measurements of how mature an organization is with DEI.
I hope the question Jitin asked, I hope the answer is there. I see another question from Mevin Austin. How can bias in AI be effectively measured and what strategies can be employed to detect and mitigate such biases early in AI driven HR processes to ensure fairness and inclusivity?
Okay, so one way is to be conducting, this is about the AI's influence on the HR practices, right? So one way is to be conducting regular audits on the database that we have. Because earlier, since we've discussed, if AI is all about the data that you feed it. So if you want accurate or correct answers, you will have to feed in the right data. I think that itself, and then we'll get measurable outcomes out of it.
That's true. Even my thought was having checking the statistical parity, so that helps us to measure the bias. Also the mitigation techniques that to follow, right?
Yes, exactly. I think we have come to a 1 hour session, and it is almost time for us to wind up the live session. It was
That's
really engaging, and Priya, you made us really comfortable with the whole idea of being in LinkedIn Live. It was really insightful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
I
much.
should definitely
It was
thank
all
Priya
mine.
and my panel members. As we have come to the end of this insightful LinkedIn live session, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the richness of our conversation today. We have covered some truly critical topics, from evolving landscape of DI to rapid growth of gig economy and its impact on the workforce, to transformative role of AI in HR functions. We explored not just the benefits these shifts bring, but also the challenges that leaders and organization must navigate with care and intention. A heartfelt thank you to our guest speaker, Priya Subramani, for sharing such valuable perspectives, practical examples, and for taking time to answer all our questions so thoughtfully. Your insights have certainly given us all a thought to think about and apply in our own organizations. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, engaged in with your questions, contributed to the dialogue. Conversations like these are what helps us to move forward as a community. Thanks to NIPM for this opportunity. We look forward for continuing this discussion in the future sessions. Until then, let's say stay curious. Thank you once again. Have a great evening.